I'm your host, Jennifer, along with my co-host, Donnie, over here.
That's me.
Yeah, that's him. You may notice our set is a bit different tonight. That's because we are live on location here at Skyland Ale Works in Corona, California. Woo! We're happy to be here, but before we can get into that, Donnie has to do his disclaimer.
Kids, if you are not of drinking age or 21, 18 in other states, it's time for you to go to bed. So, that being said...
Wait! Class is in session. Stop rambling on and on and on. We want to get to the good stuff of this field trip that we have today. And that's not talking to you, that's talking to Brad, the man over here.
Oh, well, welcome, Brad.
Yes, welcome, Brad.
Welcome to your own place.
Owner and brewer here at Skyland. So thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for putting up with us and sitting up here. So let's get started.
So, what is it we have in front of us right now, and why are we drinking it?
The beer in front of us right now is our Fest beer. So I brew this every year for our Oktoberfest celebration, which is October 2nd this year. And it's a traditional, modern Fest beer. So it's not a Märzen, it's not amber, it's lighter, it's more crushable. You can drink these all day long. So it's more of the modern Oktoberfest beer. So if you were to go to Munich this year for Oktoberfest, this is the style you would be drinking there.
Nice.
Try it.
Nice, easy drinker. What approximately is the ABV, IBU of this?
That's a good question.
We're supposed to ask them trick questions tonight.
Are we staying? We're not staying with the script, yeah?
No, it's just under 6% ABV, so it's not super high, and IBUs are probably 25. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's very malt forward. It's not, it's a nice, easy drinking lager. It's not the IPA that's gonna blow out your palate. It's something you can drink all day long.
I actually got sweetness from it.
No, yeah, it's got a lot of malty sweetness to it.
I got it right for once. So we'll just start with some questions. I have easy questions for you. So how did you get into brewing beer? And did you start at home brewing your own beer?
Yeah, I started at home. It's actually all my wife's fault. She bought me a
She's not here to defend herself,
No,
so you
she's
can't
not.
blame it on her.
She got me a home brewing kit from More Beer in Riverside for Christmas one year, and I think it was Christmas 2004. And I actually brewed my first batch of beer on New Year's Day 2005. And she was wondering what to get me for Christmas, because, what do you get the guy that has everything? And so she asked one of her clients, she does hair, one of her male clients, she said, what should I get my husband? She said, get him a kit to brew his own beer. And it just took off. I mean, as soon as I brewed and I tasted that first beer, I knew, this is what I want to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like a fish to water, I guess.
Yeah, I'm afraid to get him one over here, because, that'll be the next step.
So, what beer are you most proud of, and how long does it take to brew?
So, it's like asking me which one of my kids is my favorite kid. And everybody knows it's my oldest, but it's cool. Right now, I think the beer I'm proudest of is probably Louis Time, which we're going to drink here in a little bit, which is another lager. And that beer is named after my father-in-law, who passed away a couple of years ago. And he lived in 96. And I swear to God, up until the day he died, he could probably still kick my ass. He was a mean mofo. But I loved him to death. And so I named that beer after him, because every time, his name was Louis, so every time he would show up to a family party, everyone would go, hey, it's Louis time. And so that's where the name of the beer came from. So that's one of the reasons I'm proud of that beer. Plus, it's a pretty freaking good beer, too.
Right now, the trend in beers is seltzers and Berliners. What is your most out-of-the-box beer? How did that turn out?
It's interesting you ask that, because I'm not an out-of-the-box kind of brewer. I'm a very traditional brewer. I brew a lot of lagers. Our biggest sellers here are honey blonde and our Gas Lamp IPA, which is our West Coast IPA. Both very traditional beers. Those are 2 volume bestsellers. And then all the lagers that I brew. So I really don't do a lot of stuff that's out of the box. Although today I brewed my American barley wine, which comes in at about 10.4% alcohol, and it's called Big Hairy Monkey.
Nice.
And so I like to brew stuff like that, but it's still a traditional American barley wine. It's not like super out of the box, but it is freaking amazing. It's a good beer, and I'll end up barrel aging some of it, and some of it will just be served straight, never touch wood. It'll just be all stainless the whole way. But I'll try a couple different barrel age treatments on it and see what happens with it. But I'm a very traditional brewer. I don't do a lot of out of the box stuff, but we are experimenting with a lot of seltzers too. And so we're still playing around with different flavors.
Yeah, I have seen quite a few seltzers pop in.
There's
in and
actually
out.
not one on right now, which is kind of funny that you asked that question. But so I brew a neutral seltzer base, and then we'll add different flavorings keg by keg. And once we find one that hits, like everybody loves, then I'll do a full batch of it. But right now we're just playing keg by keg with it and having a lot of fun.
Nice. So I do have a question, and it's just about when you visit other places. When you visit other breweries, is there a baseline drink that you order to where you can say, oh, that was great, or I don't need to try the rest of this brewery?
So being the traditionalist that I am, when I go into a brewery, I immediately look to see if they have any lagers. And because if you have a Pilsner or a Helles or something that's a light lager like that, and it is clean and drinkable, that means you know what you're doing. Because those are the most difficult beers to brew. And so if those are good, then I'll go on. If they don't have a lager, I'll usually go to their pale ale or an IPA. Usually a pale if they've got it. Just because it's harder to hide flaws in those beers. And so if that brewery knows what they're doing, those beers are going to be solid beers. And so that's usually my game plan when I go in. And I don't do flights when I go into breweries normally. My wife will order a flight or whatever, and I'll sip some of hers. But I'll usually go in and I'll find that one beer that interests me, and I'll order a pint of that. And if it's not good, I won't finish it. But thankfully, most breweries have come a long way as far as quality goes. So it's rare that you go to a brewery and find they're not up to stuff. They may do styles that I don't particularly like, but the brewing quality is pretty good across the board at most breweries.
Nice.
You'll still find some stinkers out there, but they won't be around long because people have good places to go, right?
Yes.
Why would you go to a bad brewery if there's 20 good breweries right down the street?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sure, I have one more question. So, I know you just got rid of your seltzers. So, what is most women's favorite style to drink, and what beer is that here? I know when I came in last, you had a seltzer.
Yep.
So I'm hoping when I come back, you have seltzers. But
If I have time tonight, there'll be a seltzer on before you go home tonight.
Well, we won't keep you long, so get back there.
I don't know because I don't really track and I'm not a woman, so I don't know. I love you, Brad. President of my fan club, Ian Castro. I don't know. I think obviously the seltzers. We played around with some good seltzer flavors. Like we have a key lime pie one that we do, and a mojito one that we do, and a pina colada one. And those all seem to be really popular.
Yes.
Especially with the fairer sex. But they also like a lot of the lagers because they're lighter, they're drinkable. I really don't know because we don't track our sales by gender, but I would say, the seltzers, regardless of flavor, they become super popular.
Yeah.
Much to my dismay. I swore I would never do them, but from an economic perspective, we kind of have to keep up. So,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You see it in every brewery now.
And-
You've got to.
And the crazy thing is, just don't tell anybody, but they're super easy to make. And they're cheap.
Yes.
There you go.
So profit margins are really good on those.
I expect you to have one every time I come in.
But don't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to listen to another guest of the evening, which is the Chris Thayer Band and the TCB. Right now, we'd just like to thank you very much to Brad for
Yes, thank you,
interviewing with
Brad.
us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Set me up another round. You set me up another round. We're going out of town. Gonna burn our mother down. Gonna drown my sorrows like there's no tomorrow tonight. I said my baby done me wrong. You know my baby done me wrong. Just like a mama crazy song. She been cheating all along. Drown my sorrows like there's no tomorrow tonight. You set me up another round. You set me up another round. We're going out of town. We're gonna burn our mother down. I'm gonna drown my sorrows like there's no tomorrow tonight. I'm gonna drink that hurt away. I'm gonna drink that hurt away. I ain't nothing left to say. And I'm ready to play. I'm someone new. That's what I'm gonna do. So set me up another round. Set me up another round. We're going out of town. We're gonna burn our mother down. I'm gonna drown my sorrows like there's no tomorrow tonight. Drink all night and start a fire tonight. Baby, shake that ass and be loved.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on our podcast and letting us come on the show with you.
Thanks for having us. We're having a real good time.
I think you have the Festbier in front of you. I know that from the last one, if you wanted to indulge in that. But
I'm going to save it until after because
Absolutely.
at this point I don't remember the words as it is. I start drinking this good stuff and I ain't going to stop. And then
Absolutely.
it's going to sound like Hootie and the Blowfish up here.
Then it's even more entertaining.
Yeah,
We won't judge. We won't judge.
So let's start out with Jen. Jen has a question for you.
All right, so it's kind of a two-part question. So how long have you been playing music, and when was your first live performance in front of a crowd?
Started playing in high school, actually. I want to say around 30 years at this point. So yeah, it feels like I've always done it. It's just something that has always been a part of my life. My first performance, I actually was Danny Zuko in Greece in high school, and that's kind of what was the beginning for me. It was realizing that I could maybe do this and not just be a musician in the background. Like I was a bass player when I started out, so it kind of taught me, hey, you can sing if you want, and you can be up in front of people and do this like legitimately. Yeah. I was terrible. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was awful. But at least I felt like I was able to do it. At some point.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Grease. I always torture this one over here and put it on the TV whenever it comes on. So
I can't watch it.
I'm singing all the songs.
I can't watch it. I have nightmare flashbacks of how
I make him
awful
sit on the
I was.
couch and watch it with me.
Oh.
So was blues your first love? Is the first part of this question. And if not, what kind of bands did you play in or start with?
I've done a lot of everything. I think, like most people, you don't have a lot of original music, so you just kind of start playing whatever covers you can think of. But very early on, I started playing blues. It just seemed to click for me, which is really weird as like a 19-year-old kid, in the height of like hair metal and all that stuff, to suddenly start playing blues was just really bizarre. It didn't make much sense to anybody I knew. But yeah, I mean, I over the years I've done just about anything you can think of. I was in a ska band for a while. I was in like an alternative group for a lot of years. So I mean, I like lots of different types of music, but this seems to be home for me.
Yes.
So man, it just feels like where I belong,
Absolutely.
Oh, my question? Okay. So, did anybody influence you, or do you have any musicians that you look up to and that got you into playing the rhythm and blues?
Oh yeah, quite a bit. One of the first ones I remember was a guy, he's kind of like Riverside royalty, a guy named Rod Piazza. And my dad took me to see Rod and the Mighty Flyers play down at Carlos O'Brien's, where it used to be at the Plaza in downtown Riverside. And it's gone a long time ago, but I remember like on a Sunday going in there and seeing this band just like blow the roof off, and I was like, wow, that's pretty incredible. Like I want to do that. Years later, I got the chance to work with a really talented frontman named Jumpin' Jack Benny Cortez, and he's still out playing and doing stuff. But I like to say that he took me to blues school because he showed me how to front a band and to hold an audience and to put on a show. So those two were some of the bigger like personal ones that I know that I had a chance to become friends with. And but I mean, there's many people that have been an influence.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of, I went through the whole thing, and I'm going to ask you, one, who is Bruce English?
Okay.
Okay. Who is Bruce English?
Okay, so
one.
Bruce English. Okay, I'll wait for the second part. Go ahead.
Why did you pick him to do your songs for your comic book, which is right over there that you can purchase?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I write the music for them, and I do the art and co-write the stories. But I mean, just it has to be the right voice for the character. If the voice doesn't sound the way they should sound, the voice I hear in my head when I look at this character, then what's the point of putting it out? It has to be right. So Bruce was a guy that I had met, I want to say doing like jams or whatever, blues jams, and I just kind of happened to meet this guy, and he's actually a bass player, and he sings occasionally throughout the night, but he's not like a front man. But I remember hearing him and doing a song with him, and I just thought, like, that's the voice of Reggie. You know, that's it. And I was super grateful that he was willing to do it. He came in and knocked it out in like one session and did maybe most of the songs in one, you know, couple hour session. And then it was so good, I wrote a couple new songs and I said, you got to come back and do a couple more, you know.
Yes.
Like, this is too good to not put more in here. So we put more songs on the record because he was so good.
So
and he's local. He plays here all over the place. You can catch him, you know, he plays at like Dory's and places like that.
During that time when you were writing this comic book, I know you mentioned Robert Johnson in there.
Yeah.
And then you also, well, the story's about Reggie.
Right.
Okay, so you just said that you added on to the story because of the songs, or because the song you wanted more. So what I'm getting at is, did you add more to the story because you just absolutely had to have him play more?
Not really. I think we looked at moments in the story that we thought, you know what, it would be cool to have a song here. And we added a couple pages to reinforce what was happening already in the story. And it just seemed like a no-brainer. You know, one of the ones in particular, there's a moment where the character is like riding the rails to get from place to place, because that's what people did. They couldn't afford to take the, you know, to pay for a train ticket or buy a car. Everyone was poor in the 20s and 30s. So it just seemed like, you know, this is a place where we need something. And that happened on the new book as well. There were a couple moments where we thought, you know what, there needs to be a song here, you know. And we just kind of layered the lyrics over the top of it.
So, also, when you were writing this, did you find yourself heading down into a rabbit hole of, well, in the 30s, this rabbit hole was like, oh, God, this sounds so great. What else is there out there? You know, you have the Robert Johnson, you have, but did you add it to, I want this sort of sound, and I want to play a song, or I want to put a song in the book? And by the way, tell about this music card that you get with the book, with your book here.
We do it a couple ways. We actually have physical CDs for people who actually like the sound of their music to be good quality. But if it, you know, there's a convenience to downloads. So we offered that as well. And, you know, it's maybe 60-40 people go for the downloads because it's just easier than trying to deal with CDs. Yeah, I lost track of the question. What were you asking me? I think it was an influences of the different people. I think the thing about the story is we use the Robert Johnson legend as a jumping off point. The idea that this guy was arguably, he was one of the most influential musicians of all time, and he was lost to history. Like, he was a regional star, not even a star, he was just like mildly successful in the area, and he recorded these songs and they just sort of disappeared. And they were discovered in the 60s. Like, somebody found these old tapes and decided, hey, we're having a boom of folk music, is what they called it, and we're going to put these out, and they became huge overseas.
This takes place in the late 30s. This comic book takes place in the late 30s blues. Now, book 2. Are you still following Reggie, or
No. I mean, the idea behind the story is that every book is a different person going down and making their deal at the crossroads for whatever it is they want. And when you make a deal with the devil, it never works out. So we know going into every book, it's not going to end well. They're not going to get what they want because that's the nature of the deal. So each book is a different person in a different decade. Now there is kind of a through line to the story that ties them together, but it is episodic. Like each story is a unique, separate story. There is some crossover, but you don't have to read the first book to understand the second book. It's pretty clear.
So yeah, definitely. For those of you who don't have it yet, you definitely got to pick up book 1, which is available right over here to your left.
But how can they get that?
There's a couple ways. We do sell them online. Obviously, I bring them to shows as often as I can. We sell them on ibcomics.com. IB stands for Inland Blue. So you can get them there. I'm trying to think other places, conventions. I mean, any comic convention around the country, you know, we're trying to hit just about everywhere. At this point this year, we've already gone to Kansas City, San Jose, Salt Lake City, Dallas. In 2 weeks we'll be in New York. Next week we'll be in Vegas. So I mean, we're all over the country. Chicago, you know, Seattle, Phoenix, New Orleans. I mean, we're taking it everywhere.
And when's the release date of book 2? Is there a release date yet?
There is. I got word yesterday that the books are at Long Beach Harbor. So they've been sitting out in the ocean for 3 weeks because everything's backed up.
Yes.
But we finally got word they're here. They're on land. They just need to be sent to our printer so that they can give them to us. So we're anticipating, you know, as soon as Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, we're going to get a call and they're going to say, hey, we have, you know, 5,000 books for you to come pick up and bring a U-Haul or something.
Nice.
So yeah, they're ready. They're, you know, we're putting the finishing touches on the album. We had some definite issues because of the COVID shutdown and trying to do things safely during the shutdown. I had to set up basically a separate room where someone could come in from outside, and then I would be in the other room and we would communicate through iPads. And we recorded a lot of the tracks that way. It was not the way I'd hoped, but I mean, it got it done, and it really is far better than I had anticipated. Like, this album is fantastic.
Do you have guest singer on that one? Or
Yeah. The interesting thing about book 2 is we go into the 30s, and we're in the 40s in book 2, and I was looking at the big names in the 40s, and you have like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. It was a decade dominated by men, and I kind of looked at, okay, so the 20s and 30s, all we wanted to hear was female vocalists, and then suddenly we hit the 40s and no one wants to hear them anymore. And I'm like, that's the tragic story. Somebody who's been to the top of the mountain and now nobody cares. That's somebody who would make their deal. Not these guys who are on their way up, somebody who's on their way down. So we decided to use a character that's a female singer who was popular and then has fallen on hard times. And the character's name is Ophelia Jones. And it's loosely based on like Etta James meets Bessie Smith meets, you know, a lot of the 20s and 30s singers.
Yeah, definitely. Very familiar with Etta James.
Right. Well, and Etta James, you know, lived here in Riverside. So the difference though with Etta James is that she came later. She came in, you know, the 40s and almost like the 50s became like her heyday. So we wanted somebody that would have influenced Etta. So that's who this character is, and that's her journey is to be important again. And, you know, by being important, she influences generations to come. And I mean, there's no Beyonce without Etta James. Right. So we wanted to kind of show, like, this could be somebody that influenced her and then pass that on, you know, to today's stars.
Yes. Do you have any more questions for Chris?
Nope. No more questions.
All right, Chris. Well, we thank you for
Thank
interviewing
you.
with us, and definitely this comic book. We look forward to book 2. Book 1 was great.
Book 1 sort of establishes the world, you know, kind of the world of the story. Book 2, we really take it to the next level. You know, we mirrored Robert Johnson's legend, Going to the Crossroads, and we kind of set that up. When we get to book 2, we really dig into somebody who has like lost everything, and I feel like, you know, book 1 is fantastic, but book 2 we've hit a whole different level of storytelling that we couldn't really do in book 1. It's kind of like the beginning of a trilogy, you know, on a movie trilogy.
Yes.
The first one is never as compelling as it's like Star Wars. You know, that first Star Wars is great, but Empire is when we really start to get the exciting stuff happening. You know.
And I can tell you, even last night, I listened to that soundtrack probably at least 4 times. Just
It never
going
gets
through the
old.
song. No, it doesn't.
I listened to
just
it
kept
last
listening.
week.
Yes.
We've been hearing it for 2 years. And I just like, you know what I want to hear? I want to put on, Legba again.
Yes.
Bruce is fantastic.
Yeah,
He's
I just
absolutely great.
Time and time again, just one right after another,
Yeah.
and just literally 4 times last night. It was, if you haven't got the book yet, you got to get the soundtrack. It's fantastic. Chris is playing guitar.
Just the album alone
Yes.
is worth the price. It is so good.
Yes.
Yes, and then you're going to be supporting your local band,
Right.
local
right.
artists. So yeah, you want to help everybody out. So
Well, and
check it out.
we wanted to do something a little bigger than just another comic book. The whole thing kind of started with B.B. King's death. And I was not friends with B.B. King. I didn't know the man, but I felt like he was a part of all of us because he had been such a huge influence for
everybody
so many
knows
people.
King, for sure.
And my students had no idea who he was. And I'm like, how is that possible? He was alive yesterday. He's on TV like every day doing commercials and guest spots and like how did people not know this legend?
Yes.
So that was kind of the motivation behind this. Like if we can somehow do some good and bring this music to a new group of people that maybe wouldn't have discovered the blues otherwise, then I feel like we did something to give back because it's given me a really good life playing this music for many, many years. And this is maybe my small way of trying to do some good and give back to it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, again, fantastic story. We appreciate you sitting down with us and
Hey, thank
interviewing.
you.
And we're definitely going to talk to you again about book 2 when that book is out, for sure.
Couple of days. We'll give it some time to ruminate and people to digest it a little bit, and then we'll definitely get together again and get your feedback on it because I'm super excited for people to hear it.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
we're really proud of it.
So, all right, as we get ready for another song from Chris Thayer, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this beer here. We're drinking Louie Louie right now. We did mention that in the interview with Brad. This is a Helles Lager. I believe it's a 4.8. And again, this is fantastic. So again, Louie Louie. After
Yeah, it's our
So,
own sing song.
our next song will be.
Actually, we're going to do a song from the new Legba for you. This is
great.
kind of like the character's big hit from the 20s and 30s.
Oh, perfect.
So it's
Yeah,
called
perfect.
Down on Bourbon Street.
Yes,
I'm going to
so-
try to do it justice, but I'm definitely not
So-
Livonia.
So again, you've got to get this book. Definitely buy this book tonight. It comes with the soundtrack. The soundtrack is fantastic. Like I said, I listened to that 4 times last night and just couldn't get enough of it. You follow it in the book, and each song coincides with something in the book. So it's fantastic. So here we go. Chris Thayer, the TCB.
Been all bound, this great big world, seen all the body could see. The only time I feel at home is down on Bourbon Street. Way down south, New Orleans, they second line, oh they dance and sing. The heart of town is down on Bourbon Street. When Carnival rolls around, the sweet sound of music all over the town. Mardi Gras Indians in a masquerade. Mighty Mississippi can't take me away. Give me a brass band and a swinging beat. Hit the step and now move your feet. Place you can lose and find yourself is down on Bourbon Street. masquerade. The mighty Mississippi can't take me away. Give me a brass band and a swinging beat. Get to stepping down, move your feet. The place you can't lose and find yourself is down on Bourbon Street. I said down on Bourbon Street. Down on Bourbon Street. You hear me?
Waiting on some Citradipity to come to the table.
Say that 3 times fast.
Which, by the way, is a 9.4 and 100 IBU. First of all, first one here, last one to leave.
I have to get set up first so they can set up around me.
Okay, and do you guys write songs on your parts by yourselves? And how often does it change every time you play? You guys improvise or?
I mean, Chris writes everything, but he's gracious enough to kind of let everybody kind of do their own thing and add their own flavors.
I think you're being kind. I think what happens is I muddle through and then you come in and make it sound good.
Yeah.
That's a little closer. But yeah, I mean, they're sort of half-baked ideas, and then everybody kind of comes in and puts their personality into whatever we're doing.
So, Caleb,
Yeah.
being a guitar player, how often are you researching and going down the rabbit hole of older blues, that older blues sound?
So it's pretty often. It's you know, being an artist and being a musician is a constant, you know, growth path. And I think a lot of good artists, and there's a lot of them on the stage right now, is we're constantly researching our craft and how we can do it better.
As far as that rabbit hole goes, is that
Well, you know, Chris just coughed into his hand and said John Mayer, and that's certainly true. This blues thing is kind of interesting. Who can I look after in the blues thing? And if you look at my hat, the answer is easily Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, guys like B.B. King and Albert Collins, and you know, all those guys are kind of my dudes. Those are the posters on my wall, basically. Is, you know, Eric Clapton too.
is it always a full band at rehearsal, or do you guys improvise? And how often is the improvision when you guys actually do play a gig?
Trying to like say this nicely. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you just witnessed the rehearsal. We improvised 100% of what you just saw, and we have more for you. Please stick around.
He's only half kidding right now. And the thing I've always done, and it's completely ridiculous, is I'll just start playing a song and they'll have to figure out what it is. I don't even necessarily tell them what we're playing. I'm sure it's nerve-wracking, but I love doing that.
The band turns on a dime.
Are you guys just trying to find structure as far as who's going to play the lead, or who's going to figure out the actual structure of the song? Or when you two do sit down together, how does that work?
It's basically he just sits down and, hey, this is what we're doing. I go, okay, cool, and I follow him, and that's kind of, you know, how we do it. But mostly it's kind of all feeling, what feels good, what, you know, who's playing in what spot. But it's basically all feeling. I got a beer being handed to me.
Now that most of you have a beer now, you've got, this is Citradipity, by the way. This is a 9.4, 100 IBU. Caleb, you got a Festfire right there. So, anyway, let's go ahead and cheers, everybody.
I'm a little gun shy after our last gig. Somebody came up and handed me a glass of something, and it didn't go well. There were lyrics that came out that I don't know what they were.
They were beautiful.
So I'm a little gun shy. So I'm gonna watch for right now, and then as we get toward the end of the night, maybe I'll partake.
We're all the guinea pigs.
Jeff, you have another company that you are involved with. It's called Bubba's Jerky. If you go to bubbasjerky.com, we have that tonight.
With the
And
commercials.
Yeah. As a matter of fact. So anytime we have a guest, we try to basically show Bubba's Jerky and where to get it. And this is the man right here, Jeff. BubbaJerky.com.
BubbaJerky.com.
That's a beautiful lead-in. BubbaJerky.com. Tastiest beef jerky, pork jerky, turkey jerky, ahi tuna jerky, alligator and crocodile jerky. We've got it all. The beef jerky is the best. You want to ask for the hippie honey. You want to ask for the best. You want to ask for Bubba's Jerky. That's Bubba'sJerky.com.
Look at that jerky.
Craft jerky for craft beers.
So tasty. Yes, thank you.
Yes, this is what he handed us today, the new craft jerky
Five-pack?
for craft beer.
Yes.
5-pack.
So-
6-pack.
The one.
You guys all have beers up there, and I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite? You can go start with Jeff. What's your favorite style of beer to drink?
On a Saturday afternoon, well into Saturday evening, I like to start off with a sessionable, crushable IPA. Nice, bold hops, real minimal malt. I'm not like an amber guy. I don't care for those browns or those stouts or those lagers. Keep your pilsners to yourself. I love you. You're beautiful. I appreciate the hard work. I'm a pale guy. India, fantastic. Double, all the better. Can I get a little hey, what's up for all my IPA drinkers out
Yeah,
there?
hey.
No, I'm not alone.
Hebe's up next.
Hello. Anyways, my preference, I'm a hazy IPA drinker. I like the hazies. Little citrus going on in there, something that's not too hoppy. Just nice and smooth and crisp. But any hazy IPA I'm down for. So, and I also like some of the browns also, like the Mr. Brownstone that they have here on tap is one of my favorite beers also. So, but me, hazy IPA all the way.
Mr. Bass Player over there, I see him hiding. You have a question. What's your favorite style of beer there?
Root beer.
Root beer. Okay, so we have a non-drinker. We definitely have a non-drinker, and that's okay, because bass playing is definitely, Chris. Yeah, definitely to stay in tune, keep the beat, keep the rhythm with Hebe there. Rhythm section. Caleb.
So I am a whiskey drinker by trade. So I drink whatever beer was handed to me. So what was just handed to me, I don't remember the name of it, is fantastic.
That is a fest buyer, sir. And Chris?
I tend to go to the really, the lightest, barely even yellow. That tends to be where I hover. Because I'm like Caleb, I'm a rum guy. So I tend to, when I drink with, purpose. So, if I'm adding some beer to the mix, it's going to be the lightest stuff you can find.
All right, well, thank you guys for answering questions. Thank you guys for playing some songs. Just before we have some end of show business, I again just want to thank Brad for allowing us to have this podcast here.
Seriously, thank you, Brad. Thank you so much for the podcast.
Yes.
And the Brew Review University crew throwing a podcast in a tap room on a beer garden with the guy in the band. Y'all, make some noise. Show some love. Maybe a little noise.
Also, Hebe Castro for always putting our name out there and helping us book some gigs. So thank you, Hebe. We love you. One more than the other. And just again for Chris Thayer and the TCB band for allowing us to come out here and, party with them and have our podcast with them. But thank you everybody that was involved in this. So we appreciate it. Support your local brewery, support your local artists and so forth. So, but we want you to be on our podcast. So if you are an artist, a musician, a brewery, or just your average Joe, we would love to have you guys come on our podcast. You can showcase your talent to our followers. If you're a brewery, we can just have one episode exclusive of your beers. Or if you're an average Joe, you can come sit next to me.
me.
Not next to this one. You're gonna sit next to me and taste what we're tasting and give your inputs on that. But we would love to have you guys on our show. So if you like what you're seeing, make sure that you're following on Instagram and Facebook. We do 5 weekly beer reviews a week, so you want to check those out. And make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. We have weekly episodes that do come out, so you want to get notified. Check out those episodes. And we do have merchandise, shirts, hats, stickers. So check us out if you like it. If you don't, check us out anyways. I'll come find ya. That's all I got.
So, as we end this class, we want you all to raise your glass. We want you all to raise your glass.
Raise your glass.
And cheers.
Cheers.